3, 2, 1, execute.
Mandalorian. What do you think about it?
Yep. I think it was pretty awesome done. I mean, they don't exactly have a backstory yet for it, but I think they can develop it in something better. And now in Netflix, they usually do.
Well, but it's not Netflix though, isn't it? It's Disney Plus. It's not on Netflix.
It's Netflix.
Nope, it's Disney Plus exclusive.
It's Netflix.
It's not. I guarantee you it's not Netflix because I do have Netflix and I actually had to buy, not buy, I had to get the trial period for Disney Plus in order to actually see it. So I can guarantee you it's not on Netflix. It's not on Amazon Prime. It's only on Disney because Disney owns the Star Wars franchise.
I know that. Hold on.
I guarantee you. You can type it up. Type it up.
I don't have much hope for it.
Well, put it this way. They did kind of screw up a lot. In fact, there is a channel on YouTube called Mike Zero or something? And the dude just uploads like pretty basic videos. But the good thing is, it's like it saves us having to go read and just scrape the web for all the news, Star Wars news and rumors that they're there, and he just brings them to you.
Right.
And apparently, Disney and George Lucas and everyone is really, really pissed off at this person called Kathleen Kennedy. And essentially, it's because she tried to peddle this entire woke agenda on Star Wars, and it kind of like messed up the franchise. But apparently, they are planning a whole bunch of stories because the Skywalker saga has theoretically ended, isn't it? But there are still like so many stories from episode 1 to 6, and even before episode 1 and after episode 6, and a whole bunch of other things, isn't it? So, for example,
I mean, the vast universe, it expands from thousands of years before, thousands of years after.
Exactly. So you can really have a total go at it. So apparently, they kind of sidelined Kathleen Kennedy. I don't know what the full controversy is about, but if she was in charge of it, in the end, the leader's to blame for whatever comes out. And I think what I thought about Star Wars Episode 9 and the sort of debacle.
That was a joke.
Oh my god, it was so terrible, wasn't it? Anyway, I think that The Mandalorian. Yeah, so here's the thing, right? So I first watched it on 4DX, and I thought with all the movement around and spraying in my face, with all the water and stuff, I thought that was why I couldn't like follow the storyline properly, right? And then after that, I just watched it on normal 2D, because I was like, okay, maybe it's because it was only my second 4DX movie, and I didn't exactly sort of, I'm still not used to it. The story, for me, was personally way too fast-paced. It's like, even the editing, right? Like, usually Star Wars is amazing when it comes to the soundtrack. Even the transition from one soundtrack to another was just really crap. And this was like meant to be the last of the Star Wars series. Well, not the Star Wars series, but the Skywalker saga. And to me, they honestly sort of messed it up. There were so many things they could have done well about it. I think we should do a podcast where we essentially just write down all the points about what we didn't like about the movie and how we would fix it.
Oh, we can go to school with that, all right.
Let's do it. Let's make that maybe that should be like the next podcast. Maybe like, oh, I'm getting feedback.
Okay, I took it off speaker.
All right. Hopefully it's going to be better now. So what I think is for the next podcast, and hopefully our sort of entire sort of bandwidth issues and all that would be okay by then. What we'll do is we'll each have points, and we will go through all the stuff we think we should fix in the entire sort of not all 4 movies, or not all 3 movies, but just the last one. Because for me, the last one was especially terrible. The first 2 I can justify. The last one was just terrible.
I can stand the 7th movie, but 8 was crap and 9 was utter crap.
See, here's the thing. In number 8, they were going in a certain direction, right? Like, so they took. I can sort of respect the creative freedom of a director and say, okay, we're going to take the franchise in this direction, right? But then they get to number 9, and then they just like go in a totally different direction. The entire concept of
Okay, generally speaking, 8 and 9 were directed by two different people.
Right.
And the 8th guy the movie before he left, and the 9th guy just had to pick up the pieces and attach it together to something. That's it.
Yeah, but so, for example, in the 8th one, they did the entire thing where they sort of, blew up Snoke's ship by ramming the other ship into it, right? Okay, so so far in all of Star Wars, we haven't seen anyone do anything like that, and so we had a hypothesis about how sort of hyperspace works. Like, at least for me, I thought it was like, okay, they're tearing open, or they're sort of tearing a portal, like to go from one dimension to another.
Dude, all you have to do is fix a freaking hyperdrive to a missile and launch it.
I know, like, so it's like, if you're desperate like the rebellion and you're up against the Empire and you want to bring down their superstar destroyers and all that, that should have been like tactic number 1, right? It's like, because you can, because put it this way, right?
Who would want it?
And they were saying like really dumb things like, oh, hyperdrives are like super expensive. But what I'm saying is, if you have enough money to buy an X-Wing, then you have enough money to remove its hyperdrive and just turn it into a makeshift unmanned weapon. Like, I think you can pull that off in Star Wars universe, right? And it's like, because
technically speaking, all the guys do was take out an entire, tiny ass freaking fleet with one weapon. Imagine launching that weapon at a planet. Imperial control planet, if you have to.
Exactly. It's like just the impact force would just cause just massive devastation, isn't it? So
I know. At least quarter of the planet will be wiped off.
So here's what I'm coming to, right? So, okay, let's say that's how hyperspace works, right? So it actually physically moves through space at, that sort of velocity, right? And, it's not like tearing into another dimension and disappearing.
Non-scientific rule.
Yeah, but it's sci-fi, right? So, it's like how in Star Trek they come with the concept of inertia dampeners to kind of just, get rid of the concept of inertia. So, it's like you can have creative freedom when you're doing this, right? But then they come to episode 9 and they start doing this thing called light speed skipping. And I'm like, what the hell? Right? Because it's not consistent anymore, because you looked at the trajectory which the Millennium Falcon was going, and if it had any consistency with the number 8 movie, then it should have literally crashed into something and caught fire. The only way light speed skipping can work is, if you're like somehow opening a portal and going from one way to another, because if not, the friction itself would have just torn it apart. But here's the other thing, right? So the reason I think light speed actually worked the way that it did in episode 8 was because when you look at Rogue One, right? Do you remember when they were on the planet Jeddah, and basically they were, the Jeddah got hit by the sort of, Death Star super laser and started all breaking up.
Single ray blast,
Exactly. And so basically those guys were taking off, and then they switched on the light speed in atmosphere.
Yeah.
So you saw how it kind of looked like a contrail when it just shot out from in atmosphere to outside, right?
Correct.
So that to me suggested, oh, okay, they're taking Star Wars in this direction where basically it's moving through physical space, right? Which, mind you, kind of broke how in episode 7, how they did the entire light speed thing and they broke past the shield. The way I sort of wrapped my head around that is that maybe the planetary shield is working on a certain frequency, because it has to let light in, right? So if you're going maybe, say, faster than light or something like that, maybe that's a way of getting past it. So I was like, okay, by the end of episode 8 and Rogue One and, seeing all the others, I was like, this is possible, though it still doesn't explain why the rebellion or, any other faction didn't actually weaponize this characteristic. Because I swear to God, someone would have weaponized it.
In episode 7, Han Solo did use the Millennium Falcon to get into the Starkiller base shield.
Yeah.
Using light speed, he went through the shield and landed in.
Yeah, so my entire sort of thing for that is that the if you think about the shield as some kind of filter, like something that filters stuff, maybe it doesn't work on some frequencies, right?
Possible.
Yeah, so that's how I had it explained, right? So okay, it's moving through physical speed. Maybe whatever they're doing is somehow sort of tapping into that wave particle duality thing, but then after that they go to light speed skipping and they just destroy the whole thing for it. I'm like, okay, so how does this thing actually work, right? So that I mean, it's like if you're making a universe, it's okay. You can play around with the physics because it's like a fictional universe, right? You have creative freedom. But seriously, keep it consistent, right? It's not like how
exactly stick with one bloody theory.
I know, right? So because just imagine because the thing was, it's like it was the Millennium Falcon doing, it was basically the same species or the same group of people doing two different things in two movies that aren't really too far apart. Just imagine it was say maybe I don't know much about the Star Trek universe, but let's say you had a situation where it was the Federation, who had a certain level of technology, and then let's say someone from another galaxy or some other thing like the Borg sort of came along, and let's say they had a step change in technology, and therefore their way of doing warp is different from the way how the Federation and everyone else does warp. Once again, I don't know anything about Star Trek. I just know
two different types of technology, same options.
Yeah, but it's like two different species, right? So you could somehow imagine that two different species found two different ways to do FTL, right? But and so you could almost justify saying, okay, if they had two different ways to do FTL, well, the characteristics are different. But they didn't have this, and it so pissed me off, man. But anyway, look, we are going way off topic. We gotta so this entire thing about FTL, we cannot use it in the next podcast because if not, they're just gonna hear the same conversation again. We gotta list down every single thing that pisses us off in episode 9.
Let's just have a conversation for now. List down things that we can carry on the next one.
Okay, yeah, fine. But the thing is, we gotta have almost a topic for a podcast, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. So here's what I suggest in terms of scope. I know we're talking about Star Wars, but that's probably because that actually you probably know a lot about the Force in Star Wars than I do.
Oh yeah.
So hang on. So we'll have Star Wars on it. Who's that?
What?
What's that? I hear voices. Okay, so we'll do Star Wars. What are the other stuff we'll do? Lord of the Rings. I mean, are we just going to stick with sci-fi, or are we going to go with sci-fi and fantasy?
We can go with sci-fi and fantasy. I don't have an issue.
Well, it kind
of
depends.
Let's go with, how do I put this? Science and entertainment?
Sorry, what's that?
Science and entertainment.
Science and entertainment. Okay, cool. Let's go with that for now. Because this is literally meant to be a podcast with just two guys talking.
Yeah.
That's literally all it's meant to be. But mind you, it should still be fine because I think we do have some unique concepts, or maybe 10 podcasts down the line we'll finally have our shit together and we'll actually have something unique. But
I know.
Anyway, still, I think we can talk about a lot of stuff. So
yeah, that'll be my wife in the background.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello.
I'm sorry, it was a big cat.
The Grumpy Critics, Zach and Sunny podcast, where two guys just talk about science fiction and what do you call it? Science and entertainment, right?
Entertainment, yeah.
Okay, that's what we're gonna do, and we're just gonna post it more or less unedited, apart from the parts where we want to maintain our cover. We'll probably just beep those out.
We'll tell you what, dude, let's just call it nerds.
No, but that's way too generic. I'm pretty sure there's already what's it called, a podcast like that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, so we'll call this forget it. We'll do it. Whatever. Let's just go back to Star Wars.
Okay, just call it nerds is on a plan.
But yeah, the first one is going to be super raw.
Absolutely. Hello. Hey, you got to start somewhere, right?
I know. Yeah, you got to start somewhere, isn't it? And it's not like we're podcasting experts.
And, until you do it.
And literally, how did this start? Was it in Thursday or was it Tuesday? You sent a message and we're like, hey, you know what? Let's do this podcast where we're just two guys talking. You're like, oh, let's do it. So
I know.
There's been zero research as to how we can do this, but anyway. So all right. So we were talking about Star Wars. We'll tell you what, we need to do a proper episode, right? Because in the the podcast title, we got to be able to put 99 things wrong with Star Wars Episode 9, or or something silly what.
Now, when we take Star Wars, instead of restricting it into one episode,
Yeah.
why don't we break it into parts, discuss aspects of it?
Okay. All right. Yeah, no, we can do that.
If we start off with that, then we can move on to the next topic.
All right. Yeah, sure thing. Well, tell you what. If you pick the topic and let me know what it is, then I can also watch that part of the movie or those aspects of the movie, and then we can sort of discuss about that.
Sure. And
Okay.
you just came up with a code name for you, Dexter.
Dexter. Okay, no, I like that. Let's call it Dexter. That's it. My cover is Dexter. Hey, was that like a...
Dexter's Laboratory.
Yeah, I know, but that was a more grown-up thing where there was like a cool guy called Dexter, wasn't there?
Are you serious, man?
No, I like Dexter's Laboratory. I still remember the intro song, and I'm not going to sing it, but yeah, no, I like Dexter.
Yeah. By the way, censor this part out.
Okay, I will definitely bleep this out. I don't know, I'll put like some funny noise or something in the background, and hopefully it'll just cut all this out. You know, this is going to be like a proper editing nightmare. You realize that, right? Because it's like so unstructured that I'm literally going to have to like listen word by word. It's like, oh, we're going to bleep that out. There are going to be just like some long beeps and long cuts, and some places where people are going to be like, what were these guys actually talking about during this time? But anyway, first episode, doesn't matter. We'll go for volume. We'll eventually get good at it.
All right.
Okay, so let's see. Going back to Mandalorian, because man, we went on a really long way.
I know, hell.
So, cool things about... Let's... Because put it this way, right? Mandalorian, very few bad things to say about it. Were there any bad things? Because I have nothing but the highest praise for Dave Filoni and what he did with Mandalorian. To me, it redeemed Star Wars.
To me, it was pretty well done.
Yeah.
It's just that the only concern is right now it does not have a big backstory, like, the big plot, but that's to come to the future.
Yeah. But they did try to sort of do a little bit of it, isn't it? Because they kind of showed how, he was a kid.
They laid the groundwork so they can build up on it.
Right,
So
yeah.
I hope they do better.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I do have hope for it because, I mean, Dave Filoni was the guy who was also in charge of Clone Wars. And, dude, Clone Wars...
Oh, okay, all right. Then I'm in, yeah. I have hope then.
Because, Clone Wars, it started off like, super kiddish and all that. And even when they introduced the character Ahsoka Tano, it was like, oh, look, it's a Padawan playing Jedi. But seriously, it got super dark as it went along. Like, I do not know how that is a 6+ PG rating on it. Because I'm like, 6+, and there are people dying with blaster wounds. There are people getting crushed by things. There are people getting lightsabers through them. And I'm like, are you sure this is 6+? It's like...
I mean, we're talking about dismembering people and putting them back together, Darth Maul.
Exactly, and like, dude, some of the things he says, like, and wait, have you watched Clone Wars Episode 7 yet? Sorry, not Episode 7. I'm talking about Star Wars Season 7. Yeah, not yet. Okay, I don't want to spoil it for you, but one of the there were a couple of things that Darth Maul said, which, especially if kids hear it, I'm pretty sure they'll turn into like megalomaniacs growing up.
Well, let's face it, actually speaking, they actually portray the dark side pretty well.
I know, yeah. Like, they were actually...
I mean, back then when we watch movies and we were a bad guy, we are always like, someone who is always destructive, will destroy everything.
Yeah.
Destroy all life as you know it. That's the portrayal of an evil character.
Yeah.
But, when I was reading the Darth Bane series, for example,
right,
you get to see how organized the Sith are.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the Sith Academy that was already there, that was crap, okay?
Right.
Led by someone called Lord Khan, who just, had a whole bunch of Sith army.
Right.
And then Darth Bane got recruited.
Right.
And then this is not right, that he can't complete his training here.
Yeah.
Then he find Darth Revan's, holocron.
Right.
And from that holocron, he learns, like, who Darth Revan explains to him how having an army does not help.
Why does it not
help? For example, if you take a master and having 2 apprentices, what will eventually happen is the 2 apprentices will get together and defeat the master.
Okay.
And then the 2 apprentices themselves will fight for power, right?
Right, yeah.
In other words, when the two apprentices get together and defeat the master, they are not exactly using their full potential. They're joining forces. They are not standalone forces.
Right. Yeah.
So by doing that, two weaker people get the position, and when those two weaker people fight and one person wins, that's still weaker than the master.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I see what you mean. So in terms of like becoming more powerful, they're not, because individually they're actually weaker.
Exactly.
Right.
Which is why Darth Bane destroyed the entire Sith army.
Right.
The entire Sith academy, he destroyed it, dude.
Yeah.
Have you read that part?
I don't. I know that it happened, and this is the rule of one, like one apprentice and one master sort of thing. Sort of came out of
Rule
Darth.
of two.
Is it rule of two? Right. Okay. So
yes,
the
one master and one apprentice.
So essentially, I thought that I know that's where it came from, but I don't think I've actually read the series. I might have like seen some like YouTube videos on it and stuff like that, but I am aware Darth Bane's the guy.
The way he did the whole thing is amazing.
Really?
The Sith and the Jedi were at war, and the Sith were losing.
Yeah.
Lord Khan already hated Bane.
Right.
So Bane went in like the weak fellow.
Yeah.
Like, he just, okay, I can't do this alone. I want to come back to the Sith Academy kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then he went in. He gave Lord Khan a Sith spell called the Thought Bomb.
Right.
And then Lord Khan, thinking that he can use that power to destroy the Sith, he used the weapon.
Right.
But since he wanted glory, he told Bane to stay in the camp.
Yeah.
And he took his entire Sith army, went into a cave, so the Jedi will follow him.
So hang on. So when you say Khan, there was a character who was. So hold on.
Lord Khan.
Because I'm trying to essentially like put a bit of a timeline to it, right? Because there was this time where essentially there was a Jedi Sith war, and
yes.
No, hang on. There was the Sith were assaulting the Republic, right? And then the Jedi decided to get involved in it, right? And the Mandalorians and everyone got involved. Anyway, the entire situation sort of ended with the Sith being beaten out of Korriban, right? Is this this and during this time the Sith were like they had like their own armies and all that kind of stuff, right? So I'm guessing this Darth Bane thing, it's way after that.
Darth Bane is way, way after that. You're talking about the part where they discovered the Sith.
Right. Okay. This is where the two Jedi, they crash land on a planet and they kind of find
that is correct, yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So this is way past that.
These are two different timelines.
Right. Okay. So remember how what do you call when Star Wars Episode 1 started, they were like, oh, we haven't seen the Sith for a millennia. So is this like something that happened like 1,000 years before Star Wars Episode 1?
Darth Bane.
Right. So is Darth Bane like 1,000 years before Phantom Menace?
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
1,000 years before Phantom Menace.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Now the thing is but the Jedi were talking about that thing. We haven't seen a Sith for 1,000 years.
Right.
There are two possibilities. They can either be referring to the Khan's army, the Sith army, or else there was one part where a Sith, like Bane is about to get captured as a Sith Lord. Yeah. And then his apprentice, Darth Zana, did like this mind trick onto a guy who practically went crazy and went lashing at the Sith. at the Jedi when they came looking for Bane.
Right.
Would have been that instance also.
Right. Okay. Wait, is this okay? Sorry, I'm just checking on like the internet now. There's this guy called Skere Khan, and it's Khan as in Khaan.
Yeah, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, because he's saying ruling the Sith for a decade, Khan's reign was turbulent as the Brotherhood was rife with civil unrest.
Brotherhood, that's correct.
Right, yeah. And basically it says, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, hang on. So at the end of the Bloody Rusin campaign, Khan, his followers, and much of the Jedi Army of Light were destroyed by a thought bomb of his own creation during the 7th Battle of Rusan. In Khan's place, Darth Bane, who tricked the entire Brotherhood into its destruction, set up a new Sith order with the rule of 2, 1 master and 1 apprentice.
Correct.
Right. So,
now, just to make it clear, the thought bomb itself, Lord Khan took all the people, all the Sith into a cave and made a Jedi follow him.
Right.
then he concentrated all the Sith's thought into one point of, like, with all the hatred and everything.
Okay.
That when a thought bomb went off, it practically consumed life from everything for miles away from it.
Right.
And all that life, all the souls and whatnot, was trapped into that tiny thought bomb.
Right.
And they will last there for eternity, fighting each other forever.
So did it just like suck out the souls? Like it wasn't like explosive, like, you know, like the Death Star or anything like that?
Both Sith and Jedi.
Right. So what did it turn
that
into?
Dark being span.
Yeah, but like what did it like turn into a holocron or something like that, or?
Nothing. It's just it's like a Force Nexus, Dark Side Nexus.
Okay, so it's just a weapon, is it? It just sucks everything into one thing.
Exactly. But using that weapon is like so powerful, it traps all the souls inside the thought bomb for all eternity to battle till the end.
Right. Yeah. But you know, so
and nothing can escape it.
So going back to Clone Wars, one of the things they did really well about the Sith was just showing how much more foresight and how much more strategic they were in comparison to the Jedi.
Yeah.
Right? Because the Jedi were essentially just running around. They were just being led by the nose by the Sith. You know? They were just being manipulated throughout the entire thing. It was basically Darth Sidious's master plan.
That was the problem to start with, right? That's why many people lost their faith in the Jedi.
Yeah.
Because instead of being the peacekeepers and whatever, they entered the politics and war.
Exactly, yeah.
They were led into it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I think it's like Darth Sidious sort of like orchestrated that entire thing. And the best thing about Clone Wars was how they put like bits and pieces, you know? It was like, you know, a tiny little trail of clues coming all the way to the end. And when you watch season 7, you're going to see exactly how it all just comes together. And dude, there is a time where when Order 66 happens, like it's ninja, right? Because it shows us a perspective which we haven't seen before. And I don't want to give away too much because it'll like spoil everything for you. But dude, it is like legit. I think it's like,
that's fine. Go ahead and spoil it.
What's that?
Go ahead and spoil it.
Okay, so you know Rex, right?
Yep.
Right. So Rex, and then basically there's Ahsoka Tano who leaves the Jedi Order.
I'm sorry. I had to interrupt.
Right.
Did you know that Rex was there in the Return of Jedi?
Yes, he's the guy with the white beard.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, that was legit, wasn't it? Oh my god, they seriously have to do more for that. They had to expand on that.
I know.
You know, it would be so unfair if they don't expand on it. But
that stories we need.
Oh, you know what's another thing? You know Ahsoka Tano, the Jedi in Clone Wars?
Yeah.
Apparently, and I don't know how true this is. It's just something I read on the internet, but I didn't know if it was like a rumor or like a real thing. Apparently, she's going to turn up in probably the second season of The Mandalorian.
Mandalorian, which means that she did not go with the Empire, is it?
No. So essentially, so have you watched? I'm trying to think. Star Wars Rebels, the cartoon.
Yeah. I know that. I think she survived the battle with Vader, but they didn't see anything after that.
Okay, yeah. So apparently this means she somehow survived, isn't it?
Yeah.
If she
disappeared.
disappeared.
The thing is, after Ezra did the whole portal travel thing,
yeah,
and then he pulled Ahsoka out of the Darth Vader's sword. After that whole scenario, they never showed him again.
I actually forgot about that part. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah, because he went through all these weird portals. You know what? I actually liked what they were doing with the Force back then. So you know how like you had the entire Rebels episode where even like what was, I forget the characters' names, but you know you had the Jedi and then you had the kid, right? Let me just Ezra Bridger, and what is the name of the Jedi Master who was Kanan Jarrus, right? So you had those two guys, and you remember how they were talking a lot about the balance, right?
Correct.
And basically, when they did, so the reason why I'm kind of okay with what they did with Episode 8 is because basically even Luke Skywalker was talking about the entire balance, right? And how he was saying that, you know, the Force is like just is, and you know, it's like you got the Sith and the Jedi, and you know, those are just like two factions, and you know, he talked about the failings of the Jedi when they were at the height of their power, and he was taking this entire direction where he's just like the Force is just is, it's just there, and he was talking about
it just is.
So essentially, I really like the direction they were going, and you remember when I showed you the kid who had the Force powers?
Wait, do you remember the part where they go to see Bendu?
Yes, yeah. Yes, this is
when he's talked about dark and light and Sith and Jedi.
Yeah.
Bendu refers to it, the Sith and Jedi uses Ashla and Bogan. He does not refer to it as light or dark.
Wait, who are those two? Are those the two that Anakin trained with on this weird place?
No. Ashla and Bogan was the origin, like in the beginning when the Force users came up.
Oh, right, okay.
They harnessed it called Ashla and Bogan.
Right.
Actually, talking about the origin of the very Force users itself, before Sith and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Alright? Origin of the Force, there was a planet, I can't recall the exact names and everything.
Yeah.
There was a planet where the users used Force, both light and dark. They did not have affinity to either one of them, alright?
Right, so they didn't pick sides. They just used the powers.
Exactly. And they had two moons.
Right.
One light and one dark.
Oh, okay.
The idea is,
when
one person, if he leans more towards the light or the dark, like for example, if you lean more towards the dark, then he goes to the planet the light, the moon the light, to balance himself out. If you are more to the light, then you go to the moon dark to balance yourself out.
Right, yeah.
That's how they function. And then later onwards, their theories changed.
Right, and it went down 2 tracks.
Exactly.
Right, yeah. But so essentially they were talking about this entire balance thing, and they were making out this entire thing where the Sith were no more in episode 8, right?
Yeah.
And basically, you still had the dark side, but you didn't really have the Sith. And remember the kid that I showed you with the Force powers?
Yeah.
So you remember how we were talking about how Rey was way overpowered in episode 6 and 7. Sorry, in 7 and 8, right? But, if the Force is just there, then you can almost expect like a genetic anomaly, and you'd have a person like Rey being born, and basically her having all these, superpowers, right? Essentially, with very little training, she'd have these amazing powers. But then they come to episode 9, and they're like, well, this is the granddaughter of Palpatine. Screws the whole thing up, and they bring back the Sith, and I'm like, what? Why did you do that? It was going in such a direction, and it's like they took a massive U-turn for the entire sort of series. I'm like,
in my opinion, what happens with Disney and all that stuff, they overpower their characters. Now, for example, their thing is target audience, right?
Right.
They have to target the audience.
Yeah.
And their main thing right now is all with the feminism and then the LGBT rights and all that.
Right.
That's what they're trying to promote now.
Right. Because it's a market segment.
Exactly. The thing is, when they are referring to women's rights, like, equal in women, or rather, I don't know how to put it, feminism.
Right, yeah.
All right? The concept is, take a girl, overpower her, give her all the abilities. She is just freaking awesome just because she's a girl.
Right.
That's how they portray it now.
Yeah.
They don't have to work for it. Now, for example, Luke Skywalker, direct descendant of Anakin Skywalker.
Right.
The chosen one, the one born of the Force itself, the most powerful, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Even he had to go under strenuous training under Master Yoda.
Exactly, yeah.
And Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Whereas Rey, on Starkiller base, fights over fully trained Sith.
Yeah.
Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
And beats his ass like nothing.
I know. Yeah. It's just like how does that even happen, right? So for me, the way I kind of explained the entire thing, how Rey was overpowered, just parking, because you can always say creative freedom, right? And it's like the way this person.
That excuse everything.
Yeah, I mean, but here's the thing. It's like, so this is what I was talking earlier about consistency. So, okay, fine. You want to peddle that agenda. You want to do that. All right, well, give it a little bit of a backstory. So when they show the entire kid, like just doing his Force powers and just pulling the broom, it was like, okay, this is just the Force evolving into something new. Because you have genetic mutations, right? Kind of like, just like how, like, you have the entire X-Men sort of thing with the mutants in it, and them sort of just, just switching on new parts of their genetic code and them coming with all kinds of powers. So I was like, okay, fine. It's
I think, now, for example, when it comes to Rey, if it has something to do with, like, Emperor Palpatine cloned her and, gave her some kind of special characteristic, that would make more sense.
See, that would have made more sense, right? But
Exactly.
but the entire problem is, it's his granddaughter. What? Okay,
Yeah.
like, I was so annoyed. It was lazy story writing.
Get powered down Anakin's line, fine, I get that. Chosen one's descendant, fine, it's really powerful. Woo.
Yeah.
Emperor Palpatine, come on.
And you know how he was like a total idiot the way he died? It's like,
do not remind me. That's like the most pathetic ever ending given to that awesome character.
I know. It's like, do you remember Darth Sidious in Clone Wars? Like, what a badass he was. And how he was during the entire, dude, the entire episode 1 to 3, people give it a lot of flack, but the way they crafted the Darth Sidious character bit by bit by bit, it was, for me, it was genius.
He's fighting powers with Maul.
It's crazy, right? And it's like, okay, so do you remember the part in I can't remember which season of Clone Wars where he fights Maul and his brother?
Yes, exactly. That's what I said. The fight he had with Maul.
Dude, that was that sick or what? That was like one of the best lightsaber things I've ever seen.
I mean, for him, he kind of walked through the park the way he was laughing and fighting.
He was enjoying it.
Exactly.
He was just toying with those two. And then they come to episode 9 and they make a total joke out of him. And I'm like,
I mean, technically speaking, he gained his full power back, right? He reversed time on himself.
Yeah, so put it this one, I think, and I'm not sure about this, right? But in episode 9, apparently he was a clone, right? Now, cloning technology had, well, I wouldn't say perfected it, but given like Sith alchemy and the level of cloning technology that they had, you wouldn't need a freaking Palpatine stuck to a machine on life support floating around in the place, right?
I mean, dude, they created an entire army of soldiers.
It's like you
all
think
they have to do was take Palpatine's DNA, infuse a bit of some midichlorians into it, and bring it back.
Yeah, so you can even explain the story. Like, let's say, so you remember the entire like, I forget the name of this thing. Remember they had this entire game where they had Starkiller. What's his name?
Force Unleashed.
Force Unleashed, right? Yeah. So remember like how they had problems with the cloning of high-powered like midichlorian Force users, right? But you could almost like sort of explain that by the time they had gone to this point in the universe, essentially cloning technology combined with Sith alchemy and this is freaking Palpatine you're talking about, right? The guy who knows how to manipulate midichlorians, right? You could essentially come to the point where you can say that you wouldn't have that crappy character that Disney came up with when we saw him, right? We would have seen something far more powerful. And here's the other thing, right? They built up Snoke to such an awesome level, and then they just slice him in half. And you're like,
I know. I'm like, okay. I mean, you got so much hype on him.
And then after that, they had like a 1-minute explanation. It's like, my boy, I created Snoke. And then they show him like floating in like a freaking test tube. And I'm like, what, that's it? That's it?
I know.
I was so pissed. Like, oh my God. I was really pissed off at episode 9, man. Like,
I mean, come on, his all deformities and whatnot, there had to be a bigger story behind it.
I know, right? Apart from like, it's cloning going wrong. It's like, no.
That's the thing. Disney writers do not have creativity.
I don't think they're Star Wars fans in the first place. That's the problem.
I don't know. I know the director is, I don't definitely know the 8th movie director is not a fan.
I absolutely, no, put it this way. If you kept the guy on episode 8 to do episode 9, well, did they do that though? Because it felt like 2 different people.
No.
Is it 2 different people?
Anyway, the guy after 8 is out. Do you know in one point during the interview with the director, okay?
Right.
One of the directors asked, so what do you think about being given the opportunity to create a universe?
Right.
his thing was, so I just get to create universe. I don't see what's the excitement in that. I mean, how can you not see the excitement in creating the universe?
Especially the Star Wars universe.
I know.
That's like, come on, man, give us the opportunity to do it, and we do a way better job.
Seriously. Give it to the fans. Fans can write a much better story.
Yeah, but here's the thing, right? So if you give it to the fans, they'll try to make it some variation of the expanded universe. So you can almost say that, okay, Disney wants to start something new because, hey, movies are there to make money, right? So they kind of want to take it in a unique direction, which they can get a lot of cash flow out of. That's cool. But put some guy like Dave Filoni in charge, who does something that the fans absolutely love. Because I don't think people
someone who understands it, someone who gave the fans what they wanted.
I know, right? And, it's like...
They want to create a unique storyline which the fans can't predict.
That's fine.
But my point is, you don't always have to surprise the fans. Give them what they need. That's what they're rooting for.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You can surprise the fans, but just have some consistency to it. Consistency in the sense like, okay, you can ramp up the force powers, right? So like Rey becoming overpowered, okay, there might be like some weird feminism angle to it. But okay, fine. All right. So anomaly in the force, right? She just like gets the force and it's just like leaking out of her or something. Okay, that's fine.
Exactly.
Right? But then like if they were going with the entire concept of the balance, then there needs to be a counterweight to it. Like some really powerful dark side user who is just as competent as she is. Right?
How do you understand the balance of the force?
To me, it's a pretty simple concept. It's like you have the force just as is, right? And then if it's like, just imagine like like a bar that's pivoted about a point. It's like you got a bar that's like 1 meter long. You got the like a sort of pivot point at exactly 0.5 meters. And if you put too much on one side, it's going to get unbalanced. So it's counterbalanced by putting an equal weight on the other side, right? And basically,
I read about the force sometime back.
Yeah.
How they describe this, like for example, it's like a river flowing.
Right.
Force is like a river flowing.
Right.
And the dark side is like throwing stones into a river and creating ripples. And thereby it becomes unbalanced.
Yeah, but the entire
returning back to the flowing stream.
Yeah, but
that's how they refer.
Yeah, see, but that's my entire problem with it, is that perspective makes the light side uses the good guys.
Exactly. It makes the light side the more affinity.
Exactly. So that by definition makes it unbalanced.
Exactly.
It's.
But then again, if you calculate in that concept, the force can't ever be really balanced, can it?
No. So this is what I was kind of sort of getting at. So imagine you had this pole that's 1 meter long with a sort of pinned pivot at 0.5 meters, right? And you have one person dropping a weight to one end, and just as is it getting unbalanced, another person drops another stone or weight to the other end, and so you have this thing that's it's not ever static. Exactly, it's like going up and down, right? And so for me, it's that wave-like motion that creates the story arcs, where one time the Sith get really powerful, and then the other time the light side gets really powerful, and you get this like never-ending cycle. Like how in sort of Naruto, right? You had the never-ending cycle of war, but it was a cycle, right? And even after they got rid of Madara, the wars didn't end. You still had bad guys, you still had good guys, and that's just how the way the world is, right? There's always this sort of balance that's maintained.
Exactly.
And for me, the entire problem with with most of Star Wars is that they portray the Jedi as these good guys, but that's not necessarily the case, because a lot of the Sith were also Jedi who went bad, right? You never had you do have a couple who are just like, they had no Jedi influence and they just became the Sith. But then a lot of the time you basically had Jedi who were corrupted, not corrupted, but like when you look at the entire Sith code, it's about using passion and power to break free of the chains.
Correct.
If you were to look at the entire sort of Jedi code, about peace, harmony, and all that, the only way that could work is literally if you were to brainwash a person when they're young to a certain set of beliefs.
But that's what they are doing, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. So this is what I'm saying. So just imagine, like, you didn't know about this entire sort of light side and dark side and all that. If you were just looking from the outside, to me it looks like the Sith are A, more fun, and B, they get to do whatever they want to do, right? And because the entire sort of Sith philosophy lies in having freedom. That's the underlying thing behind it, right?
But that's the thing with a Jedi. What their belief is, more you use a dark side, more the dark side corrupts you itself. You don't maintain control over the dark side.
Right, but this is one of the things which Sidious was saying, where basically he was like, anger is a really powerful thing, but you need to be in control of it, or it will take control of you.
Correct. Right?
So it's not even a balance. It's almost like you need to put yourself in check when you're using these powers. But for me, it's like it's really hard, right? Because the dark side has always, by virtue of it being the dark side, has been portrayed as necessarily bad people. But man, the Jedi, they aren't all goody two shoes either. It's like it's like you get into this entire moral landscape where they also end up killing people, right? And it's like, well, okay, well, what's your definition of life then? It's like, well, if you're to kill a bad guy, you're still taking a life, but you're doing it to sort of preserve the good. But the good or the right or the whatever, it's just a construct of whoever is in power right now. Like, the more...
Can I recommend a movie to you?
What's that?
I recommend a movie to you.
Okay, what is that?
John Doe Vigilante.
What?
There's a movie called John Doe Vigilante.
John Doe Vigilante. Okay, what's it about?
It's basically, the general normal life guy.
Yeah.
Injustice was done to him, and since then he's been hunting down criminals who escapes law.
Okay, so is he like the Punisher?
He's a vigilante. So they're like discussing, can there be a vigilante? Should there be
right? Yeah.
The moral question of it?
Oh, right. Okay. Cool. Yeah.
He presents some very interesting things.
Right.
You should really watch it. Trust me, you will like it.
But
moral concern for it.
You remember how? So just stepping away from the Force for a second, but we'll kind of step back to it because it does connect eventually.
All right.
Remember how in Rogue One, when they portrayed the rebels versus how the rebels were always portrayed in episode 4 to 6. In episode 4 to 6, they were the force of good and all that. But you go into Rogue One and you see that these guys are assassins, criminals. Right at the very beginning, when that guy sort of like just shoots the guy to make sure that the Imperials don't capture him, because he's a spy and that's what he does. It just showed the entire like dark side of it. So what they did in Rogue One,
the reality of it more, right?
Exactly. For me, Rogue One was more representative of almost like a real world situation. Yeah, and
that was perfectly done,
dude. For me, Rogue One is so it's like, for me, the main sort of storyline, it's very much sort of anchored on the concept of the Force and all that stuff, right? But for me right now, my like top 3 Star Wars things, it's and in no particular order, because all 3 of these are like really awesome. I really like Rogue One, I really like The Mandalorian, and I really liked Solo. Lots of people didn't like Solo. I'm not 100% sure why, but I actually liked Solo. It was...
I was all right with it. I wasn't that impressed, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah, but it was just because it was quite simply a story of a guy who's trying to make it in the world, and he's just willing to push the boundaries, and he really believes in himself. I know maybe that like really appeals to me a lot, but it's like it was like, but it had all the other Star Wars elements to it. It had the crime syndicates, it had all the droids, it had all the Empire, and dude, do you remember the scene where they show that this entire Imperial battlefront that they were having, like the realism of that battlefront, dude.
Which battlefront are we talking about?
So remember, basically, Han, he goes to join the Imperials. He wants to become a starfighter pilot, but he fails, and they dump him on for the Imperial ground forces, and they show this entire scene where like the Empire was attacking maybe like the rebellion or something like that. And do you remember the entire battle scene over there? and the trenchers, and where he meets Chewie in the trenches. Dude, that had like a sick World War I feel to it. Because if you watch the movie, have you watched the movie 1917?
Of course, I watched it yesterday with you as well.
Did you? Right. Okay. So if you compare that, and if you compare those short scenes that you had in Solo, they were just legit, right? Like it felt so freaking real that I'm like, because always like Star Wars stories have always been like, oh, stormtroopers can't shoot straight, and it's always been like that, right? And the rebel soldiers always find their mark, and it was always unrealistic. But in this one, it showed like the Empire as this big organized force, even for like a short while, right? But then at the same time, it kind of showed like the cheeky elements of this like bunch of like bandits who are just trying to get in over there and trying to like blend in. For me, Han Solo was just legit because, sorry, not Han Solo, just the entire Solo story was legit because it was just
more realistic.
It not just realistic, but it was kind of funny in the sense that this is just a bunch of bandits trying to make a buck in this crazy world with the Empire and crime syndicates and all this, and they're just trying to get a payday. Literally, that's all they were trying to do. And for me, it was just such a nice story. And so even in like Star Wars Rogue One, right? So remember when they attacked Scarif, right? So they attack Scarif, and the rebellion, they have an advantage right in the beginning, right? But then after that, the Empire gets their shit together, and they start coming after them with force, right? So to me, that is a classical representation of small, decentralized, highly motivated organizations versus large, centralized organizations. This thing kind of plays out so much in your sort of established players versus your startups. It happens all the time. It happens in your guerrillas versus large armies. It happens all the time.
And they have a good enough strategy as well.
Exactly, because here's the cool thing about it. The rebellion, they had surprise on their side. They had highly motivated troops, very competent people. They were a small force, and they were just hitting hard, right? But then after that, they didn't exactly. After Empire got their shit together, they weren't exactly incompetent. They were good. They were just freaking handing it to them because the surprise had worn off. The Empire started to know, okay, the rebels are here, here, and here, and we're going to come after them with some force, and we're going to get it done, right? So the surprise wore off, and eventually the Empire got the numbers game on them, and they started pounding them, right? And so for me, that was a little bit more of a realistic sort of portrayal.
Not to mention everybody dies. That's a more realistic outcome.
I know, right? And it showed like the sort of sacrifices that were made to sort of secure the victory, right? But then it's like there was a lot less plot armor in that, and I loved the direction that it went in. It just showed that there's a price to be paid for everything.
Not only lot less plot armor, but it also plugged the only plot hole.
Oh, about
the Death Star had a weakness.
Exactly, and that's how you plug holes in a story. Whereas in episode, you remember how in episode 9 how they tried to like explain away the entire light speed thing, and I keep coming back to this because I'm so pissed. The guys were like, because they were trying to figure out the options to stop the entire sort of Sith fleet taking off and all that. And they were like, oh, we can't do a Holdo maneuver. It wouldn't really work. And it's like they were trying to create this world where they were trying to like plug a hole, but at the same time leave it open. And I was like so ticked off at them. The way you plug a plot hole is how you did it in Rogue One.
I know.
That's the right way to do it, You provide a proper story.
And also talking about the feminist points.
Yeah.
Remember how in The Last Jedi, when Leia goes down, that the woman who came to replace her.
Oh my god. Yeah, what's her name? Holdo. Yeah, Holdo.
I mean, come on.
Dude, if I was in what's the fighter pilot's name? The hotshot? What's his name?
I got his name.
Yeah. If I was in his position and my commander wasn't giving me proper instructions.
Paul Dameron.
Yeah, Paul I'm sorry, what's his name? Poe Dameron, right?
Poe Dameron.
Yeah. So if I was in Poe's position, I probably would have revolted. Like literally, like I'm pretty good at following orders, but there will come a point where you would just revolt.
Following orders is one thing, but following blind orders universe.
Dude, you would revolt from like the first second, but I would kind of like just go along with it to kind of see.
I mean, they're fighting for life, right?
Yeah, but here's the other thing. It's like, hey, here's your best pilot, easily one of your best tacticians, one of your best fighters, right? You need to use him in a situation like this because, say whatever you will, the people in there, they have massive respect for what Poe can do, right? They look up to the guy.
Exactly.
The guy leads from the front, and now you got a new commander stepping in. It's like, okay, I'm going to use Poe Dameron to get these people on my side. So I'm going to explain the strategy to him, and I'm going to prepare everyone, and we're going to do this the right way. Instead, it's like she almost treats Poe and everyone else like, oh, you only need to. It's like a need to know basis kind of thing, like some stupid, organizational thing, which you only see in like big, centralized organizations.
Nobody act. What's wrong with you? Nothing.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Yeah, my wife is going to be a bitch right now, but what they did was portray how girls are. What's wrong with you? Nothing.
Yeah, but they shouldn't have done that. So, for example, remember how what's the name of the girl in Rogue One? Shit, I've forgotten her name. Crap, what's her name? Let's see, Rogue One character. Let me just type it on Google. I keep forgetting names now. Rogue One.
Jyn
Erso, right? Okay, you want to do the entire feminism thing? Hello, Jyn Erso. Like, that's who you freaking want, right? That's how you get it done. Like, she freaking leads from the front, not afraid to get dirty, willing to fight, and did you see, like, how she actually rallied people, during the last part of it? Like, dude, that's how you do it, right? And instead, they put this Halder character. I'm like, I'm sorry, no one will respect her. End of story. Like,
I know.
It wouldn't happen. Whereas for Jyn Erso, it's like, holy cow, like massive respect, right? Like she was freaking legit.
That's the thing. The thing is, what they did was just grab the audience. That's it. The story grabbed the audience.
Yeah, it was. I don't know.
They
It was
the money.
It was super short-sighted though, because they should have known that there'd be like a little, because basically when episode.
These guys are practically like the EA games when they started giving like incredible prizes to Darth Vader character and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean it's like at the end of episode 9, I was seriously considering, oh shit, Star Wars is going down the gutter. I know. You know what? I'm gonna watch more Halo. I'm gonna look more into just Star Trek and other things, right? Because I'm like, this is becoming just really shit.
And the crappy thing is, there are people who actually believe episode 9 was awesome.
Oh my god,
Dude, I'm like going to school on them on Facebook.
Put it this way: if they've never watched anything else in Star Wars, you could understand their perspective, right? So because they don't know about all the other episodes, they don't know the expanded universe, and so you can excuse them.
What they're saying is, no matter what, no matter how crappy the movie may be, stay loyal to the franchise. We are loyal to the franchise, but a crappy movie is still a crappy movie.
Exactly, right? And it's like, I'm pretty sure they were paid off by someone. It's like, wait, these people you were talking about, were they like article writers, or were they just like people who thought it was a good movie?
People who thought it was a good movie. I wish I had an article writer.
Okay, right. Yeah, because if it's someone writing an article, you could say that, oh look, he's just trying to get on the good side of Disney, and therefore we get more articles. You could always imagine that, right? That's like a legitimate cause. It's understandable. That's how the person makes their money. So he's just going to write an article that's favorable to Disney.
Yeah.
But if it's just
that's fine. Still, an article, you can criticize it, right?
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, these guys, what pissed me off, one guy told me that I'm not a fan.
Right, okay.
I went to school on his ass. I'm like, dude, first of all, you're a fan.
Yeah.
The fans are the people who actually pay attention to the movie and pay attention to the details and expect what the outcome should be.
Yeah. And we don't mind being surprised as long as it's good. We don't mind being surprised as long as it's good.
A movie is not just about some flashy freaking graphics.
I know, yeah, absolutely.
Stupid, smart-ass remarks and jokes.
Yeah, but
that's all Star Wars has reduced to.
Yeah, but it's like, it's almost like it's a consequence of the era we live in, where the attention span has dropped. Therefore, you need to be able
I
to
know.
grab people's attention. And I think it's a bit of a strategic play by Disney, because if you imagine like lots of kids growing up these days, like for example, when I was back over there, basically our neighbor's kid came over, and the kid was just
Mhm.
absolutely glued to the phone, right? Like absolutely
Yeah.
glued to the phone. Now, I keep a very, very close eye on how much time that I spend on Facebook, because you can actually go to Facebook settings and you can sort of find out like how much has we spent, how much time you've been spending. So I've averaged, and I've done pretty good this last week. I've done 4 minutes per day on average, right? But it's like
Wow. Okay.
that's not bad, is it? That's really good, because
That's
I've been
good.
I've been stupid busy, right? But it's like, just imagine these kids who are growing up fully glued to the screen, and basically you're living in a society where there's a war on your attention. There's a war for your attention, right? Because if you can grab a person's attention, you can sell something to them. That's like the first step.
Best example, TikTok.
Right, TikTok is good, right? We'll get to TikTok. I got a whole other thing about TikTok, but at least so TikTok is a phenomenon of the current age we live in. Even Snapchat to some extent.
Just one thing, a fun note on Sri Lanka.
What?
There is this bunch of guys, the kids, all right?
Right.
Kids, we are talking about like, I don't know, 12, 13, are they? Siripatali, 12, 13, maybe? Yeah, 12, 13-year-old kids, okay, like bunch of little shits you can beat the crap out of with a single finger, all right?
Okay.
These guys are giving full gangster talk, carrying these blades and what, or like knives and all. They're how they're not scared of anybody, how they will kill and whatnot, and we are the gangsters and blah blah shit, all right?
Right. Oh, they're trying to be ghetto. They're trying to be ghetto.
Yeah, they're trying to be ghetto, right? Like even the cops can't do shit, we won't get caught, but you're not scared of anybody.
Yeah.
The fuckers got arrested.
I'm not. So you know what I was going to say? Like, maybe you can say that in the US and get away with it. You say that in Sri Lanka, you're about to get your ass whooped.
They got arrested with there's a photo of the kid in the freaking police with the knife on the table.
God, that's stupid, isn't it? That's just absolutely stupid. Like, you might be able to get away with that and say, hey, look, it's just entertainment, or we have our rights and all that. You do that in Sri Lanka, it's like, no, man.
They're called Degree Patali. That's like sweet underworld.
Oh my god, that's so terrible. They just asked for it, isn't it? They just absolutely asked for it. Oh, wait, where did we stop off? We were going on a rant about
Jin Erso.
How Jin Erso was actually good, right? Now I remember. We were talking about attention spans, right? So anyway, going back to attention spans. So put it this way: if you are able to hook a kid at a very young age, you essentially have a paying customer for a very long time, right? So, like for example, I remember the first time I watched Star Wars, and I surprisingly watched it in order, right? So the first time I saw it was in 1999, right? And basically,
that long row.
Yeah, it is a long time ago, right? So to put it in perspective, right? That's 20 years ago, right? 21. Basically, I got it as a Christmas present, right? And basically, I got that, and I still remember because I got that, and I got a video of the
When
NASA.
I started watching the Phantom Menace, I did not even understand English. All I saw was a bunch of guys waving around the laser sticks.
And it was freaking awesome.
I thought that Jedi were called Skywalkers.
Jedi was called Skywalker because they can like jump so high and do all flipping tricks.
Exactly. I didn't know English. I know it was his name. I just people are saying Skywalker. I'm like, okay, no, these guys are Skywalkers. All right.
Yeah. Okay. So going back to like how you can get a person hooked, right? So if you were like at that age, right? So I became a Star Wars fan, right? There's a very good chance that I'm in the industry I'm in, probably because I watched that and a couple of other things.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm pretty sure of that.
So essentially, so it just goes to show how powerful stories can be, right? But now, so essentially, they have a fan in me, unless they do something absolutely freaking stupid, right? For a very, very long time. So I might not buy like Star Wars memorabilia and all that, but I'll definitely go to the movies. ever since the movie started coming out, I've gone like 3-4 times just so that I can double confirm certain things which I thought I saw, but I really wanted to see, right? So it's like, okay, this is all cash flow, right? And one thing we know is that even during the days of like Lucasfilms, basically, all these toys and stuff, that was a very big part of that cash flow, right? But Disney is freaking that on steroids, right? Because they've had the entire Toy Story thing, they've had like the Mickey Mouse stuff. They are a massive empire, and when I went on Disney Plus, I was like so surprised, like, oh wait, I didn't know that was part of their franchise. I didn't know this was part of their franchise, and I was just like caught off guard.
The thing I don't get, these guys, they have like so many awesome damn, what do you call it, products on their damn organization, right?
Yeah. Definitely, super cool.
Right from Toy Story, Stitch, all the fucking cartoon stories, movies, everything.
Yeah.
How can they not have some qualified fucking writers for Star
Wars? No, I think they do have some qualified writers, but I've experienced this in large organizations. It's not necessarily the most competent people that get ahead, right?
Yeah, true.
It's people who play the game. It's people who
suck up.
Yeah, essentially, for lack of a better phrase, yeah, it's people who suck up, right? I call it playing the game, right? So
I work in a fucking bank, I know.
Right? So essentially, it's large organization mechanics, right? And basically, so anyway, what I was kind of getting at is they probably do have super competent people, and you see people like Dave Filoni, who's part of the franchise, and they are doing amazing, right? So there's a guy who knows how to play the game so that he doesn't get fired from his leadership position, but at the same time knows how to satisfy this, the fans, right? Right, but at the same time, it's like those people are a dime a dozen, right? You're probably going to get a lot of people who are just going to go along with the game, and it's just a job for them as opposed to them actually loving what they do, right? So going back to hooking kids at that point, using me as an example, fan of Star Wars all the way back from 1999, still spending money, but we know how much consumerism is like that on freaking steroids in places like America and all that, right? And we know Disney wants to penetrate the China market, right? The best way to hook someone is when they're young. It's like how I was talking with the Jedi. Like, how do you get people to buy into their freaking belief, which is totally not fun and it's super hard to pull off in the real world? You get them young and you brainwash them, right? And I'm not saying they're brainwashing them. I'm just saying kids are more susceptible
to things when they're young.
Yeah, but the general concept I'm saying is that it's easier to hook a person when they're young, right? And that goes with anything, right? That goes with absolutely anything. So I think their strategy was, and I don't know how true this is, it is get these kids hooked on it, and then we have a lifetime customer and a whole load of cash flow from them. We can worry about the actual fans of the story, of Star Wars. They're probably in their 30s to 50s to 60s, which means we have 20 years less cash flow from them. We'll get them later, right? And you can almost see how this turns into a game of math. And you got all these new kids who are being born who are super susceptible, and they'll be crying to their parents, "But mommy, I want this,"
fucking retards.
Well, but I mean, you kind of get it, right? Like if you're like a parent and your kid's like absolutely saying this, and then all the other kids in the playground are getting the Rey or the Kylo Ren toy, it's like you don't want your kid to be like,
dude, we are going to be our parents to our kids. I'm going to be my parents to my kids.
Yeah, but dude, put it this way, like it's a probability game, right? So it's like if there are 10 kids you're trying to get hooked. No, let's say if there are 10 individuals you're trying to get hooked, right? And let's say there are 2 subsets, and then one subset are kids age 1 to say 11, and then another subset of people are age 50 to 60, right? And you show them the story, right? Of them, the guys from 50 to 60 who are Star Wars fans, they'll be like, we don't really agree with this, right? But then the kids, right, who are from like age like 1 to 10 or 1 to 11, you'd probably have an 80-90% chance of them becoming raving fans. and them absolutely begging to their parents saying, we want this toy, we want this thing. And of that 80 to 90%, maybe another 80 to 90% will actually go make purchases. So to me, it's like it's a strategy driven by math and how to make money.
So damn cheap that they will go up the money.
Well, yeah, I mean, put it this way though,
it's all about
like
the money now.
well, I mean, yeah, I mean, in the end, it is. Disney is a big organization. They are a business. And
I mean, they're practically like a freaking prostitute. This is like a freaking prostitute.
Well,
they go after the cash, they lose quality of their performance.
Put it this way, I'm not defending Disney, but in a weird way, and I might be wrong about this. I mean, geez, what do I know about strategy? It's like I would hypothesize.
What you're saying, you don't agree with me, but you understand.
Yeah, it's almost like I empathize, but I don't sympathize. It's like I get you, but I don't agree with you. It's
exactly.
It's that sort of situation. So I think there is, I think hopefully they pivot into a direction where, okay, now they've hooked enough of these kids, and now they have a character set where and now they got a big franchise and they got the cartoons and they can target the cartoons towards the kids. But then stuff like the Mandalorian and all that, for me, the Mandalorian is really like, it's something that could capture multiple generations, well, right? Because limited
resources, that was really well done.
Dude, this is how you introduce a toy, right? The Baby Yoda. Like, Jesus Christ.
You know that?
Did you know where we are? We 3D printed a Baby Yoda. We downloaded the STL files and we 3D printed that thing, right? Freaking adults doing this, right? Because they couldn't wait for the toy, right? And basically, it's like, okay, here's a product which you can like sell to multiple generations. I mean, obviously, kids are going to be buying it a lot more, but at the same time, the way it was introduced, it was in a very adult setting, right? Like Mandalorian is not a kid's story, right? It is very much an adult story. And basically, it's like, how you don't introduce a toy? How you did in episode 9. Freaking horses running on top of a Star Destroyer, man. Like, my heart shattered at that point. I was like, no, this is just product placement. You guys are just trying to sell more toys. This is not how you do it. But when they did the Baby Yoda thing, I was like, that's legit, man. That's how you go with it, Oh, I was so frustrated, man. There's a right way to do things. There's a right way to make money. And then there's a shitty way to make money. And, I'm super frustrated with episode 9. Like, they just did that wrong. Like, even remember the time when they went to that planet with, where the sort of desert planet. And, they had this entire part about these, like, indigenous people with their festival and dancing and all that.
Yeah.
And there were, like, scenes there which were, like, how does this fit into the story? Whereas, for example, lots of people made a lot of fun about Star Wars Episode 1 and Jar Jar Binks and all that, right? I actually like Jar Jar Binks, and you saw how they came to full circle, where eventually Jar Jar Binks convinces the big boss to like bring his army and essentially distract the droid army. There's a way of like bringing the story together, right? Where the character does have some role to play in this entire thing, right? But it's like there were certain things in episode 9 where it's like, why did you show this character? And it just ended. And it's like,
I mean, even in episode 9, the entire concept of finding Sirius is based on some freaking blade which points to some ship which has a freaking holocron which leads back to Sirius, right?
Oh my god.
First of all, this is like in the far future, in a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah.
Who the puts a message on a knife and leave it on some planet for some random guy to figure it out?
And you're like, wait, that's just random. That can't be right?
I know.
I mean, like rock formations, things that crash, those things change. It's called the weather.
Exactly.
Are you really going to leave it to...
Forget about holograms, everything. Put a USB pen with the data. That's more sensible.
Oh, man. It was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. And why did they not...
I know.
Like, if... what I would have liked to see? this is one obviously permutation of how the story I would have liked to see end. I would have liked to see Rey descend to the dark side, and Kylo Ren, who was like so torn between places, he actually redeems himself, and and then that would have been Rise of the Skywalker, not some person going to Tatooine and saying, "Hey, I'm the new Skywalker," because no one knows my history. It's like, what? It sort of makes sense. I was. Oh,
I mean, Skywalker is supposed to be the chosen one's bloodline. They just remove the significance of that bloodline entirely.
Exactly, and essentially Kylo Ren sort of redeeming himself at the end. That would have been great, because then it would have almost because that would have killed Sidious, and it would have almost made this thing that Luke is not the chosen one. It's actually Kylo Ren who is the chosen one. Because he finishes off Sidious. The arc ends, right? That would have been, for me, and I'm sure there are better endings, but for me, that would have been the perfect ending where, she just...
Very perfect ending.
It would have just been amazing, man. They just spoiled... Like, I can't believe this is a part of human history now.
I mean, okay. Take the fighting, for example, right? The fighting in Revenge of the Sith, and then the Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
The Revenge of the Sith, the fight between Obi-Wan and Anakin.
All
the sword moves and whatnot, the jumps and push and everything. All right?
Yeah.
I mean, the lightsaber forms, the strategies they used, all of that.
That was class.
And then you had the Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
Where the highest point of the most elaborate move she made was a somersault wiping off the wing of one of the ships.
Yeah, it basically, here's the other thing, right? So, in order to get good at lightsaber combat, it's not just knowing the Force. It's one thing to know. It's like when Sasuke's using the Sharingan, right? It's one thing to know the punch is coming. It's a whole other thing to counter it or do whatever you want to do with that information, right? The Sharingan will see the punch coming. Like, remember when he was fighting Killer Bee, right? Like, he could literally track the movements of everything, but the guy was going so fast that he couldn't do anything about it, right?
Exactly.
Whereas it's like in this Star Wars, it's like, apparently she's a total master saber specialist. She can also like use the Force, and it's like, and she can like heal people, and it's like she can talk to snakes, and she's like,
what's up with that healing people?
I mean, that is such an advanced Force power. It's like obviously the whatever logic, and I even hate to use the word logic, is that it's like, okay, she's descendant of Palpatine, and Palpatine learned through Plagueis how to manipulate midichlorians, but they had to do research and training and all kinds of stuff to figure that out, and she's just like, I know how to heal people, and it's like, what? How? Just explain it. Tell me you read a secret scroll of water bending or something.
I mean, seriously, if I was there and she did that to me, my first question is, how do you do that? How the hell you don't do that? Explain to me.
Stop the story. You gotta explain this. And it's like,
get your facts straight.
It was super frustrating, man. It's like, I wish episode 9 didn't happen. Like, something different should have happened in that story. To be honest, episode 8, I'm willing to excuse it because they were taking it in an interesting new direction. But then when they snapped back to the original direction and they totally screwed it up, it's like, oh, dude, you guys just messed up. Like, because I don't mind them taking Star Wars in a totally new direction. That's okay. That's freaking creative freedom, right? But you gotta be consistent with your strategy. Right? It's like, if suddenly the Force itself is mutating and people themselves are mutating, that would have been great. Like, okay, Rey overpowered? Fine. Okay, now you need to find other individuals who are like super overpowered, right? And then you can build up that entire thing. But it's like, oh no, she's the daughter of a Palpatine, so that explains everything. Like,
that's the thing.
And nothing about Palpatine.
And did you see any lightsaber forms in 7, 8, and 9?
No, it was just people who are really angry, just
and then just waving the sword back and forth.
yeah, exactly. They try to do some cool things with them.
And the slow motion jump moves.
Yeah, I mean, there were some cool things which were like, like activating and deactivating the lightsaber, which, I would have sort of expected to sort of see. But do you remember in...
Actually, I would have expected those moves like a long time back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why would you do that?
But here's part of the thing, right? I would have thought the entire idea of deactivating your lightsaber in the middle of a fight reduces your defensive options. Like you're trying to go on the offensive.
Actually, and so discussed earlier.
So
I saw a video on that. That was one technique. Yeah. It's a very risky technique because it leaves yourself open.
So remember how in the lightsaber forms you had Vapad, which was like a really aggressive style, which is really mostly offense. And then you had more defensive forms, right? So Vapad didn't have this in it, right? Because its philosophy is, okay, I'm going to just freaking cut you to slices, and I'm just going to attack and attack and attack and attack. And that kind of involves keeping my lightsaber on so that I can finish you off, right? And if something like Vapad, which Mace Windu, and who else used... I think this guy, Maul, used a version of it, his own sort of form of it, isn't it? And it's like, they didn't... Like, Star Wars has a lot of background, man. And it's like...
Where did Maul use it? I'm trying to remember that.
Sorry?
Where did Maul use it? I'm trying to remember that.
I might be wrong about this. I think, basically, as you go from, like, Form 1 to 6 or 7, things get more acrobatic and less grounded. So you see a lot of footwork and grounding in the earlier forms, whereas things gradually get more acrobatic and aggressive and using the force to power yourself, which is why like the later forms tend to sort of favor dark side uses a lot more because, they're more into like power and, using the force to like bash things and, that kind of thing. Whereas the first few forms are, more sort of into the people who are into the entire peace and harmony and all that kind of thing. So it's almost like, I don't know, like going from something like, what's it called? I forgot that. What's that form of Kung Fu? Oh, so to use like sort of Avatar sort of analogies, it's like going from airbending to, I don't know, a very aggressive form of firebending,
Correct.
It's something like that, but even like firebending has its own different styles, isn't it? So it's like, but anyway, so let's not go into Avatar because Avatar is cool. We should talk. Know. We should talk. That's
another episode.
That's a totally different episode. And anyway, so you know what? I got to bring this to an end because I basically need to get ready for tomorrow because I go work tomorrow. But anyway, tell you what I'll do is let's bring this to a close. We'll still have Star Wars stuff going into the future, but we'll be a little bit more organized because I think we spent like the first 30 minutes of this thing trying to like just figure out what to talk about, isn't it?
I know.